So good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone joining. My name is ElsaMarie D'Silva. I'm the founder of Red Dot Foundation. It's a nonprofit in India and the US. And we work on gender safety, equity, and justice. Our flagship program is Safecity. It's a crowd map for anonymous reporting of sexual and gender-based violence. And it is my great pleasure to invite you to this virtual session, which we are hosting on the sidelines of the 9th multi-stakeholder meeting on science, technology, and innovation for sustainable development. Right now, there are in-person meetings in New York at the United Nations, but as an ECOSOC accredited nonprofit, we are able to host this virtual event. And I'm very thrilled to be, sharing this discussion with you because I have some great speakers. And our topic for today is building ecosystems that accelerate gender equality in STEM for poverty alleviation. And with me to decode this topic, what does it mean to build ecosystems? How can you accelerate gender equality in STEM fields? And how does it really improve lives? I have with me three very interesting speakers. So we have Reena Dayal. She's the founder and CEO of Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India, doing some amazing path-breaking work. We have Dr. Darshana Joshi. She is the founder and CEO of Vigyan Shala. And we have Dr. Maneesh Paul, who's the founder and CEO of Microbioma. And apart from that, they're also part of several networks that I'm part of. So whether it's the Chevening Network or the Swedish Alumni Network. And through these networks, we also provide a lot of support to young people to think of STEM or careers that can accelerate equality, equity, participation. And we will be sharing stories from two of these mentees who've participated in the Swedish Alumni ESG Fellowship. The fellowship was run by my organization, and we'll have Sonali share a little bit more about it. So maybe I will invite Sonali at this point to maybe share a little bit about, the various programs that Red Dot Foundation hosts on STEM.
Hi, Elsa. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here. So at Red Dot Foundation, one of the things that we love to do actually is to mentor young people, like Elsa said. And through the year, we have a number of mentoring programs where we mentor young people, mostly girls, but we also have a lot of mentees of other genders. And these mentorship programs are on a number of topics. We have a lot of programs where we concentrate on STEM. So we need the mentees to be from a background where they have an interest or they are studying either science or commerce. We've to date taken a number of more than 350 young people through various mentorship programs. And in the last year alone, we've had more than 100 students, 100 youth go through these programs. So the thing is, a lot of our mentoring programs are on a number of different topics. So like Elsa said, we have mentorship programs on STEM. We have ESG mentoring programs. We have mentoring programs for young girls from underprivileged backgrounds. And the beauty of it here is that all of these youth they have beautiful ideas. They have wonderful aspirations, but sometimes they may just not know how to channel it. They may not be aware of what their options are. And this is where mentoring comes in, because we pair them with a mentor who can guide them. And the process of pairing the mentee with the mentor is something that is really important, and we invest a lot of time and effort into it. And we try to pair a mentee with a mentor who will be able to best support them in terms of their interests and the areas in which they want to grow. So we ask the mentees to fill out a form where they talk about their goals and their aspirations, and then we mentor them. They then go through a mentorship period for 3 months to 6 months, or whatever the period is, during which they have the benefit of having this one-on-one time with the mentor, where they can ask the mentor whatever they want. And it works beautifully, because and the wonderful part is, sometimes even a year later or a couple of years later, we do hear stories from our mentees about how, or from our mentors, about how they are still in touch. So what essentially is happening is, we are creating this ecosystem where young people are able to gain from the experiences and from the knowledge and expertise of these senior leaders, whom otherwise they probably would not have had access to, or they wouldn't have had an opportunity to meet. Elsa?
Thank you, Sonali. And with that, I am going to start the panel discussion. I'm going to invite Reena Dayal. She is the founder and CEO of the Technology Council of India and Quantum Economics, Quantum Ecosystems. Can you tell us a little bit about your work, Reena? And what are you trying to do? Because I believe it's path-breaking, and you're setting the foundation for a lot of that ecosystem of support in your field of quantum technologies.
Sure. Thank you, Elsa. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for this great partnership. And hello, everyone. So as Elsa mentioned, I run a not-for-profit called the Quantum Ecosystems and Technology Council of India, which is a mouthful. So the short form is QETCI, and I'll refer to it as QETCI as we go forward. We started this entity in 2021, just 3 years old. Our goal and mission is to enable and accelerate the quantum ecosystem in India. And we want to ensure that India is amongst the top few countries in quantum as we move forward. It is very often talked about in India when we refer to the semiconductor revolution, saying that the India missed the bus for semiconductors at the first time when the revolution was happening. So our intent is to make sure that we do not miss the quantum bus. What do? We actually engage with the government, industry, academia, anybody who's a stakeholder, startups, investor community within the ecosystem, and look at it from a systems perspective. Since quantum is a very new area, it is evolving, we look at the ecosystem and we see where interventions are required. And for these interventions, either we design programs ourselves and run them, or we make recommendations. And most of the time, we make recommendations to the government for certain policy changes to be brought in, certain action to be taken in certain areas, and so on. An example of a program that we ran ourselves was an incubation effort that we did for quantum in 2022, and to gauge and first to support early stage startups in quantum in India, and also to be able to gauge exactly what the potential of the Indian ecosystem is. Because once you have data and evidence, then you can make recommendations which are more meaningful, and those are actually sort of taken forward, and that's been our approach. The second angle to hold this whole ecosystem approach is that India is not a silo. We don't live in isolation. We are part of the large, the planet Earth, and there is a lot of scope of collaboration for all the work that is happening here with the rest of the world. So the second tenet for us is that we enable international collaboration in quantum. We are a very strong believer in both collaboration within the nation and outside the nation. Since we're an independent entity, we work very closely with the government, but we are an independent entity, so we are not really bound by all the bilateral and quadrilateral and other kind of restrictions that may be there within the law, of course. But in terms of carrying conversations forward, finding out opportunities for collaboration, and then we can always make those recommendations to the government as and when required. We have done that in the past as well. Since we're discussing, I will just make one statement and give it back to Elsa. Since we're talking about ecosystems and gender equality, it's important to understand the first observation I want to make is that, first of all, STEM representation, everybody knows women are less represented in STEM worldwide. But the problems that we have in India are different from the problems, for example, the US has, and some other nation may have. We'll talk a little bit about that from my perspective, but it's even more important to understand, and what we have realized is that if we are talking about deep tech and emerging areas, that representation becomes even less. So that's the challenge that we have to face.
Thanks, Reena, for sharing that with everyone. I think it's important to talk about statistics, and we will come to that. Everybody knows representation is low, but we have you representing quantum ecosystems in India, building that network of support and collaboration. And we have another great leader in the form of Darshana. So Darshana, would you like to share a little bit about your work?
Thank you, Elsa, for having me here. I'm so sorry. I'm joined by a newest
That's
member of the
perfectly
family.
fine.
Also.
We have to normalize this.
Yeah, so she's feeling a bit tired, so that's why I thought, okay, I'll hold her while we talk. So, hello everybody. I'm extremely grateful to be here. I'm Darshana. I'm a physicist by training, and I did my PhD from the University of Cambridge, and now I run a organization with my husband called Vigyanshala International, where we are bringing quality STEM mentoring and career opportunities to young women across India. Our flagship program, Kalpana She for STEM, is now aiming to mentor about 10,000 girls in the next year from the most bottom of the pyramid communities across India to bring them into STEM workforce. So, like Reena spoke very, inspiringly about why we need representation of women and how the whole quantum ecosystem in India is changing. So, I just wanted to make a few things like from you look from here, okay? Yeah. So, yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are working to bring more women into the STEM workforce. And why STEM? As everybody may be wondering, like, so STEM careers globally are growing 20 to 30% faster than other careers. And whereas in India, we have about 50% STEM students who are studying STEM are women, but then our representation in the workforce is less than 15%. So this basically is a huge missed opportunity cost, not just for the women who are dropping out of the pipeline, but also for India as a country, right? So, and just 1 minute, Mama. Nandini, what happened? Mama will come. Just give me a minute. So my apologies. So this is actually a huge missed opportunity cost, not just for the women who are dropping out of the pipeline, but also for India as a country. Imagine about 4 million women who are studying in STEM programs across the country, but do not have access to resources or the networks or the support system that can help them progress in science careers. So if they had that opportunity, what it could mean for not just for them, but for their communities. They could bring families and communities out of poverty purely by their STEM skills and purely by advancing their own careers and their own pathways. I just wanted to tell a story here. So I myself came from a farming family from Uttarakhand. And for me, I couldn't dream, I couldn't have the background I came from, the career in STEM to this extent wouldn't have been possible. Had it not been for a Delhi-based NGO that picked me up during my high school, gave me the right mentoring and the support, and then later a chance encounter with who now is my lifelong mentor, Professor Shobna Narasimhan from Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, a globally renowned women in physics. So if it were not for her mentoring, my dreams or my world would have been much smaller. So basically, mentoring and support, as the Red Dot Foundation has also been enabling for many young people across India, plays a huge role in advancing people's aspirations and advancing people's careers. And I think STEM today has the power to devise solutions for And the challenges our world is facing today, from climate change to wildfires to plastic pollutions, and all of that would be possible if the right mentoring and support is available to young women across, not just across India, but across the globe. And imagine if women who from the communities who didn't have a representation and access in STEM so far would come to the table, their views come to the table, the solutions that will come out of this whole ecosystem will be very, very different and will have the potential and power to solve for what our world is facing today. So with that, Elsa, I would like to stop. Thank you. And this is what we are trying to enable at Vigyanshala.
You're right, because today, we don't have many lived experiences being represented. So the more, the solutions that come from the people who are diverse, then it'll be represented in the solutions as well. So thanks for bringing that point. I now want to turn it to Maneesh Paul. Maneesh is the founder of Microbioma, and he was also a vice chancellor of a university. So I just want to bring him in and ask him to explain, his thoughts on this subject, but also tell us a little bit about his work.
Thanks, Elsa, and nice to listen to both of them, Reena and Darshana, their perspectives. Of course, this is a topic which is very sensitive, especially when people don't pay attention to what they're trying to do, because there is a lot of cultural bias, I feel, because of which this equality word has become is not looked upon in a favorable manner in many of the settings, official settings, be it industries or be it academia and every place. And when just now we saw what Darshana was, doing with the baby there, and the demands are quite high for a lady in normal life. And this is where I think a change has to come in. Of course, we are all talking about the change. Just to tell about my work, basically I'm a scientist, not an academician fully. I'm an inventor, and I did study in the US at Johns Hopkins Medical School and worked at the US FDA before coming back to India and inventing the first molecule from India, which got approved worldwide. Now, when I try to draw parallels here. Now, this molecule, it's called as N-metazobactam. It is celebrated world over as an invention because it's the first time ever it has come from Indian soil to the world. Never an Indian molecule has reached this heights in the world. But it's not talked about in India. Now, draw the same parallels about the gender. When women have been part of every system of our existence, I mean, we come from the whole ecosystem of women and men, I mean, man and woman, and that's how a person is born into this world. As a biologist, I'm a biologist, microbiologist, I look at very closely from biological point of view. There are no differences when it comes to the capabilities of uniqueness for both the genders have got it. So when I hire also, there is never a question of people have this in applications, sex. So I say I do not want to have that column there because it is not necessary. I am hiring someone for the skill. That's it. I don't want to know whichever gender affiliation or which sex they have, whether they're sex or male or female, it doesn't matter. And recently we were hiring, so I told remove that column. Even if the person belongs to any other non-traditional genders, which we know about, we should just go and hire the person. There should not be any discrimination based on that. And this thought process, when I put it across, someone said, how are you going to manage the psyche of the person in male and female dominant office workplace? I said that's where people have to grow up. I said the existing people have to grow up to understand and accept the change and accept. I mean, these were be the realities of all this time. It is nothing that a new thing has come in. Now it is more visible. People are able to speak about it and are quite vocal about it, and that's when you got to hear. Earlier, the traditions of the families did put a culture on a woman and told this is what the role is supposed to be and restricted. My mom grew up in a similar family, right? She had 10, my father had 10 siblings and she was married at 19 and she was the eldest daughter-in-law. So the journey she had was incredible. And she was pretty much like a help who came into the family rather than the a daughter-in-law of the family initially. And over the period, of course, it's shifted away. And my wife, for that matter, she was supposed to be a pilot in the Indian Air Force, the first initial batches in the 90s, early 90s. But she chose, very interestingly, she's educated, she's qualified, but she chose to be a homemaker. She said, I will raise the children first, and then I'll get into the office work, because this, I feel, is a very important responsibility to raise my children first. Because if I didn't have children, it's a different ball game. So I'm going to take this break. And now she's become super busy. I can't even find time to find her. That's the level of busyness she has taken. I think this kind of shift in our thought process should also happen, because the compassion and the way a woman would bring up a child, of course, man is equally important, versus the man would bring up a child. I think both together have to play a role in bringing up a child. And the soft, the tenderness, or whatever you call, from that the softness which the mother can bring in, the father can. It is difficult for the man to break that barrier about himself. I'm the tough guy. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to bring that emotion. I think even their changes are coming these days, and I think we are moving in that direction.
Well, thanks. We are already kicking off with different diverse viewpoints, and I think we are going to have a great conversation. I'd like to welcome everybody once again to this discussion. Please, in the chat section, tell us who you are, where you're joining, so that we can make it as interactive as possible. So, Maneesh, you raised a very important point, and first of all, congratulations. I did not know that you had invented this first molecule, and I'd love to know more about it. Maybe in the chat section at some point, you can put the link to some of your research. You raised a point about, your wife, who is highly trained, was a Air Force pilot, and chose to give it up for her career. The key word over here is choice. Do you have a choice? And I'm right now in Rome for the Women 7 meetings, and we were talking about freedom. Do you really have the freedom to live your life in the way you want to live? So it's totally up to a woman if she chooses to prioritize motherhood over her career. But at the same time, it is also her choice to have a career alongside motherhood. And then, is the ecosystem supportive enough to help her do that? And right now, I see there are lots of gaps. So maybe we turn to Reena to find out what are some of those gaps, and how do you bridge those gaps in building a new ecosystem of support?
Right. So let's look at the numbers, right? Like if you look at India, for example, STEM education is actually promoted in India. So even daughters are promoted to study science, right? I think India has a different problem. We tend to box everything in a certain manner, and parents are very, very insistent that children should be studying science. So we don't have that problem of entry into STEM.
And actually, I want to make a point here, because last week I was at MIT Media Lab at Boston, and they were showing me how actually when you bring in diverse people, so you can be a scientist, but you can be a musician. You can be a scientist, right. You can be a poet. But if you bring your whole self with your artistic capabilities and your creative side, the innovations are far more better. And they were explaining that to me, and I was fully blown.
Right. So I'm also an innovation management expert. I've written a book on that, and very much on the same lines as what you're saying. I totally agree with that. But in India, what happens is you have around 30 to 40%, between 30 to 40% women who undergraduate in STEM. Okay, that's a reasonably high percentage compared to a lot of the West, right? But what happens is that the moment you look at master's programs or post that, this number dwindles when it comes to the academic side. Also, when you start looking at intake into industry, the intake is 30 to 40%, but the number dwindles very, very sharply as you go higher up the ranks. And it also shows that a lot of women do not pursue education beyond undergrad in science in India. It also showcases that a lot of women join careers, but there is a leaking pipeline, which Darshana also talked about, right? And that's a really big issue in terms of what we really need to address. There is a third angle to it, If you want to really look at the scenario where you're looking at postgraduate, and I was looking at it from a quantum perspective, a lot of discussions with other women scientists trying to understand what the statistics are. There are no published statistics, but largely when we looked at the IITs and some of the other institutes, we found that a lot of women who are in the undergrad, very bright, and the professor is actually thinking that, she may do great if she pursues a career, and they're suddenly gone, no postgraduate, right? So, so there are several systemic issues here. In many cases, higher education is expensive. And what happens is that in India, sometimes the parents are, especially if they belong to the lower economic strata, they're willing to go the extra mile, take a loan and get their son do the post-graduation, but that's not so often done for the daughter, right? Because they're not sure what the return on investment would look like, or they just don't think about it. It's not as if, it's like ingrained into the psyche in certain ways. So that is one problem. The other problem is that, of course, many women get married, and then if they are having kids, they may take a decision they just find it very overwhelming sometimes to be able to manage both things, either studying more or even doing a job. And we think that people understand that they can go and look for mentoring. Unfortunately, what I have realized from my own personal experience with such women, in many cases, is that sometimes they do not even know that there is an option to go and get mentorship. So I'll share a personal anecdote, which is slightly different. Several years ago, there was a lady in my team, and she's very bright, doing very well. And then one day she comes and talks to me and says, I'm thinking of quitting. And I asked her why. She said, no, just and then I said, okay, let's go for coffee. We sat down, had coffee, and then she opened up and she said, it's just becoming too overwhelming. There's too many challenges at home and I just can't deal with it. Everything at home as well. And she was living in a joint family. So a lot of stakeholders to address at home, as well as, multiple stakeholders in office. So it can get that overwhelming. And then I just talked to her. I was several years older to her, and I had gone through similar situations. And it just so happened that I shared some of the practices that I follow and how am I able to balance and how do I prioritize things and so on. And she seemed to be listening to it very, she was responding to me. And so I said, why don't you just try some of these things out, maybe for a month. And after a month, if you still feel that you want to leave, then we can have the discussion again. That lady never left. She's working till today, right? And that was like a half an hour conversation. That's how powerful mentoring can be. And it was an aha moment for me as well to realize, just how powerful mentoring is. And more importantly, how do we expose more women to, such scenarios? It's also important to understand that we sometimes role model people based on stereotypes. So we take women as role models who are women of a certain kind. But remember, we have a very wide variety of women out there who need mentoring. And the first thing that is very, very required for mentoring to be effective is that the mentee has to feel connected to the mentor. He should not be looking at the person as if the person belongs to from a different world. So if the mentor is somebody, let's say, in a very senior position and says that I have never faced any problems, right? It's been, I've never faced discrimination. A lot of women do that, by the way, and I just hate it. They'll say that I've never had any challenges and, it has been a smooth sailing for me. It is just totally based on my merit. That actually is very, very negative for mentees out there, because then they look at this person and say, oh my God, it must be me. It's me who can't handle it, right? Because these people seem to be making it without any challenges, right? And of course, it's a big lie, because the environment is such that everybody, including men and women, will go through challenges. Life is not easy in any case, and working and balancing both things is not easy. So I think that is also a social aspect that needs to be looked at. From a quantum perspective, what we're trying to do for the systemic problem that we talked about, like undergrad to postgrad and so on, is that we are planning to institutionalize certain scholarships only for women for quantum, for postgraduate education and fellowships and so on. So last year we experimented with a fellowship we took one woman and took her through the Quantum Policy Fellowship. And she was the author of a report that we released last year, which was a full report on the quantum ecosystem in India. And I mean, I didn't call her today, maybe I should have. And she's very happy with what she learned. And she's also, got opportunities with international organizations, even while she's studying her master's, because of the kind of work that and exposure that she's got. So I think both are required in small ways, whatever we can do within our organizations. And the bigger thing is to, because we look at the ecosystem, we have to take that approach as well, is to see what kind of targeted interventions in the ecosystems can help either ourselves or with, recommendations to the government. And by the way, I realized over a period of time, in the last few years, as I'm interacting with the government, industry, and academia, that we tend to think of government as a very different kind of entity. So if I was in an organization, people, if you're in an organization, people will make recommendations very easily to the seniors or to people who are in charge. Actually, you can do the same to the government. I have written emails just about this gender equality thing to relevant people in the government, saying that I have certain recommendations, and they accept recommendations. They will, they look at it and they act on it. So I think what we need to realize is that it's important to reach out to all stakeholders if you want change to happen.
Thanks for bringing that up, and we'll come back to you on some of those examples to share. But we've already discussed mentoring as a strategy in building that ecosystem, either formal mentoring programs or informal. And I think y'all have all been mentors to our young people. And you said the matching the mentor and mentee is the key. And this is what we've realized in mentoring 350 young people through various youth innovation challenges, ESG fellowships, and specific STEM mentoring programs. But Darshana, that's what you do. And your aim is to mentor 10,000 young women in the next few years. Tell us a little bit more why you think mentoring is absolutely critical.
Oh, thank you, Elsa, for that question. And thank you, Reena, for giving us a wide perspective on how mentoring really impacts people and their careers. So, Elsa, as I gave example from my own anecdotal journey, like how mentoring, both from the Delhi-based NGO that supported me during my high school, as well as the mentoring from Professor Narasimhan and many other mentors in my life, enabled me to dream something which was perhaps initially totally out of reach for me, right? I'm a first generation learner. My parents didn't finish school, and then coming and accessing not just education, but higher education and the best of it from global institutions like Cambridge wouldn't have been in my reach had it not been for the mentoring. So we firmly believe that having that 6 degree of connectivity, right? Like, so once you have the mentors and all, the pathways stay open is something can have an exponential impact on somebody's journey, right? So young women in India today face several challenges when it comes to building a career in STEM. For them, of course, stereotypes, both career-wise, both of their abilities as well as the disciplinary stereotypes, and not having access to acquire the relevant skill set. Like, for example, if there is, Reena mentioned it very well, like, so if there is a boy and a girl, suppose they both are studying engineering, for instance, right? So a boy is more likely to be able to travel to a different city to, do an internship or to build a skill set, whereas a girl may not have that luxury, right? Parents will be like, okay, we have been able to get you through this education, but then there will be several restrictions on their mobility, which results in an overall lack of STEM skills in the same age group of girls versus boys. When you look at, then not having relatable role models to look up to, people who could seem like they have broken those barriers. So I would just give an example. So the mentoring program that we run is called Kalpana Sheet STEM, and this year we are aiming to reach about 10,000 girls, and we are now building a digital ecosystem so that we could reach 100,000 girls by 2028, and eventually 1 million girls who would be building and collaborating and having connects with mentors on this platform. So the idea is basically leveraging the power of digital tools so that a person sitting in the US or Africa or somewhere in Australia can mentor a girl sitting in a rural India, and a girl sitting in India can collaborate with a girl in South America or US or America, and they can build the solutions of the future, right? So that's the kind of system we are envisioning. And I feel that mentoring here in enabling these ecosystems plays a key role, right? Each one of us who have broken those barriers have something to pay it forward to, something to give it to the community, right? And our lived experiences, like Elsa, as you were mentioning, can actually be that light of hope for someone who may be in a similar situation. Giving a small example from the curriculum. So then the head of Intel India, Nivruti Rai, she came and she was talking about her personal journeys and how she got married early on, and then, negotiated and then went on to do her studies in the US, and then entered Intel and stayed on for 30 years. And the girls who were listening, like about 500 of them in that digital room, they were in awe of what she was talking. Similarly, recently, Professor Radha Boya from Manchester, she was interacting with these 1,000+ girls from, the most marginalized communities across Telangana, which we are now piloting with. And when she spoke about, hey, a few years ago, I was in your spot. I was that girl in BSc who was confused. Where is my degree going to lead me to? And then, these are the moments, sparks of relatability that really inspire the girls to see, okay, this is possible. The things are in my reach. The dreams that I haven't dreamt yet could be possible for me. And I think that's where mentoring plays a very pivotal role in catalyzing, those, first bringing that aspiration, then helping you to build a pathway towards that aspiration. And that's where our program is really working. And we feel that these things cannot be done in silos. It takes a village to raise not just a child, but help a woman build a career as well. And I feel that organizations like Red Dot Foundation and ourselves or Reena's or Manesh's, like when we are doing different things together, when we come together as a collective, when we share, allow for a cross-fertilization of ideas, a lot of things can be learned from each other. And it is in these cross learnings that new ways for solving for this problem sort of emerges. And I feel mentoring here has been pivotal for me, has been really useful for the girls that we have mentored. And we are continuing to see, like, just giving that spark, how much, it can do for them, and how much it has done for me. So thank you, Elsa.
Thanks for that. And, like you said, just seeing somebody who's been through that journey can make that shift happen in the mind and make that person believe that everything is possible. And I think, Darshana, you're in this book. She is Women in STEAM. This is, one of our 4 books in the She Is series, which we've been trying to visibilize the leadership of women. Our first book was on sustainability. I found it really difficult to find women, had to dig deep in my networks because if you just Google them, you can't find them. The second one was 75 Women in STEAM. The third was Women in Water. And now our 4th book is actually Women in Chemistry, and it'll be out shortly. So if you don't see her, you can't be her. So even, amplifying and making it visible is important. Talking about mentoring, making sure that people know that they can access mentors is also critical. And then Maneesh raised a very important point in his first round, where he said that when he recruits as a male leader, he doesn't look at sex or, your gender. He looks at your skill set. But not everybody is sensitive enough to do that. So I wanted to ask you, Maneesh, and if this is really putting you on the spot, how could we bring in that culture of, accepting people where they are and who they are, creating, you also recognize that, for women to access these opportunities, we might have to make some accommodations, like, where Darshana had her baby. But not everybody would be, approving of such drastic changes. Now you see men also bringing their children to parliament, but it's not a common sight. So how do we change men to be more sensitive, to make that ecosystem of support? And maybe you can just talk from your own experience. I don't expect you to talk for all men.
No, definitely not. I would speak for myself. And one of the things I noticed what Reena or Darshana was speaking is about mentoring, right? I think there's a huge gap in the way even the mentoring is done. I'm just speaking my mind out here, not to say which is right or wrong, because where is the mentoring for the men? If men are educated also about it, I think there is going to be shift in the, especially the youngsters. I'll tell you about myself. I'm talking in the early 90s, 1993. When I was recruiting, I was heading laboratory. So my thinking was, I need people on the bench all the time. So if there is a girl who is, just marriageable age, I'll say, I'm not going to hire her. The reason is now she'll get married and then she will have family. So my lab work is going to get disrupted. So I'm not going to hire a girl. That was such a wrong thing because I grew up in a patriarchal society where, I'm talking, it's almost like 4 decades ago, pretty much. Right? That thinking was so different. And as I grew and I started interacting, and we had two more friends of mine who were girls with me, the colleagues, and talking to them and seeing them, what they used to go through, they were still not married youngsters. My mind started changing. I started seeing that they are so talented and they're able to be so supportive and things like that. And then I met my wife, and these are the life moments which changed me, right? But I never had a mentor who could tell to look at things differently. And today, education is there, but there is no education to the men, especially the younger folk, to accept people as people. Now, as a scientist, I just say, look at them as Homo sapiens. That's
Or
it.
role models on positive masculinity, right? Because what
Yes.
you are modeling, like you even mentioned that you said, to the people who can't change their thing, grow up. But it's not just growing up, it's being sensitive to what's around you. Yeah.
True. And these are the experiences which will make you to realize, but not everybody has to experience everything in life. You can, as you mentioned, the role model. And I think mentoring is equally required for men as well. One, mentoring for women to come out of the shell and go and grab their position, what is required. At the same time, and men are generally gentle with the women, especially this modern generation. So if they're sensitized a bit about this role by mentoring, I think we can fast track engaging more women in STEM and other aspects of life as well. Because women's success are usually ignored, always put at the back. Oh, theek hai yaar. She must have got it by some other means, not necessarily by achieving her own way. She doesn't have that because she's not speaking much. Lot of talented girls I have seen among students also, they're very silent. In Acharya, when I was heading the campus, I saw one girl, she came from a village and she was trying to work among the forest among the farmers. She did not know English, so I gave her a challenge. Every day you got to talk to me in English. I want you to build that confidence so that you can make a difference. And within 2 years, I really liked that girl because she was so passionate in doing the community service, but she did not have a platform because she lacked the language. The reach was missing. So she became a model student. And I use this in a lot of my speeches to tell that how one has to encourage people, be it male or female, especially when someone is struggling, try to uplift them and bring them to the level of everyone else rather than, oh, she doesn't know English, put her behind and start bullying her. That should not happen. So these are the changes I could make in my life. A few examples I'm sharing. That's it.
Thank you, Manish. And actually, very interesting fact that in our mentoring programs, it's not really about the subject matter. Most of the time, it's these young girls from vulnerable backgrounds who just want to be confident in speaking English. And in a country like ours, which is multilingual, speaking English is currency for progress. You can get a better job probably, or just feel like you're one of the crowd. You don't feel like you're alien to it. So that's why also mentoring is very important. But let's talk about, okay, we've identified mentoring as a strategy. We've also identified that you need sensitive leadership to create policies and maybe, practices within the organization that are supportive. But can you share now, Reena, some of the good examples of collaboration, maybe with government or, with apart from your organization? So, because I think if we want to accelerate gender equality in STEM, we cannot do it by ourselves, by our own organization. We have to collaborate, and it has to be collaboration across all sectors. You said it was very easy for you to write to the government, and they accepted your suggestions. Can you share a few examples? And then we ask Darshana and Maneesh as well.
So before I do that, I found that thing about English very interesting, because before I started this entity, which was just 3 years ago, I was part of large corporates. And there are a couple of corporates that I know that actually have long-running programs where they take women who are engineers, who are studying engineering, in some of the tier 2, tier 3 institutes. And these are people, many of them, these girls, they come back from slightly lower economic backgrounds, or they come from villages and things like that. And there is a little bit of this. Some of them are very bright technically, but they lack the understanding or the sophistication of let's say, working in a multinational, right? So what these companies are doing is that they're doing these long running programs where they are actually systematically mentoring them from second year onwards. And by the time they pass out from 4th year, they can match any person, any professional, in terms of confidence, in terms of speaking English in a certain style. And the outcome of that has been many of these pass outs from these tier 2, tier 3 institutes, because they were academically already good. And now that their personality change has come in and language change has come in, they have been hired by multinationals at very high salaries, right? So this is actually completely changing and transforming the lives of women. So mentorship is important, but I feel for dramatic change, sustained mentorship is also required in certain cases. There is a little bit of a scale-up problem that happens, because every time a corporate takes this up, they will do it for, let's say, 50 or maybe 100. But we're talking about millions of people out there, right? So I think the challenge here is to devise strategies where this could be done across in a slightly more systematic manner. And that's where policy recommendations can come in. So examples of, an example that I wanted to talk about was around the same time that QETCI was formulated, I saw a report published somewhere about scientists who had been awarded, as the top scientists in India, and there was not a single woman's name in that list. So I had written to certain people in various departments saying that, I noticed this and I cannot believe that, and I personally know many women scientists. So, we have to be conscious and cautious about these things, and later made recommendations. So, there is no, I can tell you that it was heard and there was a discussion that happened. And so a lot of times the work may be just like in any other organization. In a government department also, the actual work may be happening by a certain group of people. And the leader may not have insight into every little, head of the department may not have insight into every nook and corner all the time. So when you point something this out, it is noticed, and then only then action can happen. So I feel that, and so many times various departments, especially STEM related departments, they actually ask for input. So for example, when the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office, they were creating the deep tech policy, right? Deep tech startup policy. The whole exercise was done by taking inputs from the ecosystem. It was publicized by them on LinkedIn that we are seeking inputs. It was put up on the website, and a lot of people who were engaged in the ecosystem gave inputs. When we gave inputs, we also included aspects of what should be done for women, so that there are more women in quantum startups. The number is less than 10% right now, right? So how do we engage that? So while we, think of the government as a separate entity, my recommendation is that if you want to create change, at a larger level, from an ecosystem perspective, you have to watch out and see, okay, where is the opportunity to give the input? Because those inputs are being sought, everybody's engagement is being sought. So that should be, provided as well in a constructive manner, saying what can be done to solve this problem. And sometimes you may have a better idea than anybody else. And I'm representing a private entity and an ecosystem player. And therefore, I'm telling you this, not trying to be.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the principal scientific advisor to the government of India, because his office and he is doing amazing things to amplify women's leadership in STEM. One is they've partnered with us on the books, but they have the Manthan platform where, they are showcasing women, they are giving women scientists a lot of visibility. They are creating opportunities for innovation. So I noticed Darshana's videos off. So maybe Maneesh, Darshana, yeah. Do you want to share some examples of collaboration that have worked?
Thank you, Elsa, for that question. Yes, certainly we do have examples of which have worked for us in the whole government thing. I feel that there is an intent, as Reena rightly shared before me, that there's an intent from the government side to collaborate and here. So when Vijay and I set up Vigyan Shala, we were looking at understanding what are the challenges of STEM ecosystem. So we had huge support from Uttarakhand government to really, they facilitated our visits to over 150 last mile schools to really gather data on what was the challenges, why the girls in Uttarakhand are not taking science, why the states challenges for the teachers and the state of the infrastructure and all. And when we came back with the recommendations, they were very, very willing to sort of look at it and look at it in depth. So that's just one example. Otherwise, so far when we were developing program Kalpana, one good thing about the program Kalpana, one unique thing about the program Kalpana is it is designed in consultation with the end users, our girls that we work with, right? So we spent about 3 years really reworking structures of the program, then mapping it with the industry, what was needed there and what our girls needed. And then now when we went to governments like in Telangana and in Uttarakhand saying that, hey, this is something that could potentially benefit nearly 10,000 girls in the state, in both the states, and see how, we could connect them to world of possibilities out there, especially the girls who are coming online for the first time, making sure that the digital infrastructure works for them. And there is a positive intent from the government side to to partnering, to collaborating, and to giving us access to the girls themselves. And I think I have had a very good experience so far in leveraging this whole ecosystem. And I believe personally that it's a problem where the civic society, the industry, the government, and the whole ecosystem as a whole needs to come together, and no one player is bigger than the other, right? And government has that catalytic effect in all of it to be that catalyst who can speed up this amalgamation of various stakeholders together, right? So and again, the whole principal scientific advisor's office and how it operates, we've been also at the end of receiving generosity from their side and connecting us to various partners, whether it's their hubs or whether it's partners like your organization, Elsa. And I think it's really important when you have such champions sitting within the government and they start becoming those nucleation points for ideas to come around. I think change happens faster. So, but again, it's something that where all of us need to bring together various stakeholders and then take it on from there. So with that, I'll pause. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for being so accommodating.
No, not at all. Yes, Manish, what are your thoughts on collaboration?
Yeah, you see, two of the hurdles, barriers, what I see is one is, enforcing women's traditional roles is a major barrier. Now, if you look at today, where innovation and technology are playing a really increasing role in every part of our human existence, right? And when we're talking about STEM especially, see, which is driving the knowledge-based economy, right? So here, ensuring gender equality in a STEM-focused research and education is very important. And how do you do it? Of course, through collaboration. So when we say collaboration, it is It is bringing skills together, skills of multiple skills together. Because I do not have a particular skill, doesn't, I usually tell this to people, because you don't have a particular skill, do not feel inferior about it. Look around within the laboratory space, who has that skill? Be bold enough to just go and tell, okay, listen, I don't have this skill. Can I borrow that skill from you? I say, borrow the skill. And that way, what happens, the person becomes more generous in sharing that knowledge, and you don't feel your lackness. And this way, I'm talking about collaboration at the laboratory level, because we're talking on the STEM basically. So
And
I'm
that
trying
is
to
exactly what we are now talking at the corporate level, where you have diverse teams with different skill sets so that you are complementary to each other and nobody falls short. Yeah. So, yeah, science,
yes,
I think, in
and
that
always,
sense is very, inclusive.
and I always tell people, uh, don't even use the word equality. I say use the word of uniqueness, because no two people, even identical twins themselves, are not equal. As a person, I'm talking about. So each of us have made very uniquely with unique set of skills and our personalities. So find reasons, proactively look for the gaps that you have, and find those gaps which could be filled from your other colleagues in your ecosystem. And if not only there, in today's what you call technology driven world, you can look for that skill anywhere in the world. I am a mentor for two different organizations. One is Johns Hopkins School of Medical School, where I'm an alma mater, so I'm a mentor there. And I'm also a mentor in an infectious disease society organization. There, I see many people coming and talking to me because they say, I lack this skill set. It is gender neutral for me. And when they come to me, and they also tell the kind of challenges they faced. So I connect them with those relevant people in their organization so that they can go and borrow those skill. I always tell, just like you borrow material thing, borrow the skill, borrow the knowledge. That way you feel complete. You never feel, underconfident. That's one way to collaborate in addition to the others which Reena and Darshana mentioned.
I think that's a great way to talk about collaboration. So now let's hear about mentorship and the benefits of the mentorship. And this is a different kind of collaboration. So I'm part of the Swedish alumni network, and when I was a board member, I decided that we should have an investment in young people. And 3 years ago, we started with our first ESG fellowship. Shweta Carvalho was part of the first group of 10 young people who went through that ESG fellowship. Shweta, can you tell us a little bit about, what was your idea at that time? Why did you apply for the fellowship, and how did it benefit you?
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and I'm really thankful to Elsa ma'am and Sonali for giving me this opportunity. So I just got to know about the ESG fellowship through one of my friend, and I just applied. I didn't know what is it about and how is it going to happen. I just did it because out of curiosity. And when I came to know about the program, and I was told to take up a project, so I took a project on beach cleanup, and steadily we were provided with mentors. So my mentor was Mr. Neeraj Agarwal. So I used to be in touch with him constantly, and we had used to have discussion. So I just taken the project on beach cleanup for namesake, and so in the beginning I was completely raw. I didn't know what should I do, how should I begin with, and I just took it. And later, after a few discussions with him, he was like, we used to have a call every random or every alternate days, and then he told me that I should collaborate with people, I should collaborate with other organizations, and that's how I started with my beach cleanup project. And so I kind of implemented it, but then again I was falling short of funds. So again I the project kind of got stopped, it came to a halt. But now again I'm looking forward to take it forward and collaborate with other organizations. So I'm really thankful to the ESG fellowship and the and Red Dot
So,
Foundation for giving me
Shweta, you
opportunity.
said at the beginning you just did it because you were curious, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
end of the fellowship, after having tried out the beach cleanup yourself, what did you learn?
So I learned, first thing I learned was how collaboration is important because, and yeah, so how collaboration is important. That is the one thing I learned. And other thing that I learned was mentorship is very important because, if you do something on your own, there could be some flaws that no one could tell you. But if you have a mentor, he can tell you that you're lacking somewhere. You need some help from so and so person. So this is what I understood, that someone senior to you, someone experienced, can be of more help to you to help you in your project, to implement your project. So this is the most important thing that I learned. And yeah, so I would really, I would be thankful to the organization and the committee for providing us mentors. If they wouldn't be there, then I don't know how far I would have taken this project and what outcome would have got. So I'm really thankful for that.
Thanks. And Prathama Baria, you were in our recent, okay, I think she dropped out. Is Prathama there? Okay. Great. So I will wait for Prathama to join.
Elsa, I just wanted to add one
Yes.
comment, if you don't mind, in the meantime. So we were talking about the role that government plays in all of it, and I think to scale anything that we want to do at population scale, I think it has to come from government, and that's where when government brings opportunities for creating those ecosystems where such things can be scaled, it becomes
Hello?
important for all of us to sort of contribute back into it, right? So I think for government to scale mentorship is something that has to be done from the government side. So that's a point I just forgot to add earlier. So I just wanted to add it. Like, so we all can bring in those test cases and use cases to the government, and then government has the network and the facilitation so that it can sort of scale it and ensure that every young aspiring girl out there has someone to look up to, and she can connect with them effortlessly, and she can seek the guidance and the support she needs.
Thanks. And like I think what Reena was trying to also say is government is sometimes open to it. You have to take the first step because there are people within the government who also could be allies and entrepreneurs that can help you implement. Okay,
Absolutely.
we have a second young person, Prathama Baria, who was part
Yeah,
of the
hi.
recent ESG fellowship. And was Maneesh your mentor? No.
No.
He seems very
Vini Monjal.
excited about it. So anyway, tell us a little bit about your project. And it was very interesting because it seemed very ambitious, but you actually managed to get your company to implement it. So tell us a little bit more about how it helped.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Pratima Baria. I completed my master's in organic chemistry, and I'm working in a company called Exposome. So basically, we make some kind of a molecular filters. Okay. So there is one parameters in industrial effluent which cause a lot many trouble, to the environment. So to reduce that parameter, using my brain and with my mentor and like my boss, we decided to develop one product. It's called Pure Soft. So I was working on that, how chemical, the type of chemical reaction it should take place to reduce that parameter. So how my mentor helped me is she is into water resource and all. So she told me if I'm using this in higher scale, or what are the other things which can harm, which can cause a trouble if I'm using that particular thing in various industries. So right now the status of what I have decided is I gave that product to many institutes, and to several industries as well. They tried it and they got 50 to 40% reduction. And I'm like, right now I'm happy, but what I have thought it, and right now where the product is. It's not commercialized yet, but we are just doing small testing and all, and it's great. It's great to be part of ESG, like to promote my idea, and it gave one bump, like from lower, when the acceleration, it gave me acceleration to to think more about it in a different direction. Thank you so much for that. That's it.
So I just want to reiterate that's a lot of progress because you just finished your master's, you had an idea, you wanted to test that idea out. The mentorship helped you think deeper about the idea and gave you some maybe new perspectives. You implemented it, you've sent it out to various companies, and 40% have accepted it. So that means
it's like 40% results. The
okay.
40% reduction.
So
yeah, the results.
The results.
Yeah, there are
So that
parameters.
means,
Yeah.
from what I've understood, interviewing lots of scientists, it's like you do thousands of experiments and then you finally figure it out. So I guess you're on your way, is what I can say. Keep at it.
Yes, of course.
Continue. I hope you've got confidence to, not give up, and all the very best in the future. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you
us.
very much.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks. So last, we're coming to the end. Maybe we can take a couple of questions from the audience. Do you have any questions for any of our panelists? Maybe you can raise your hand, put on your video, and I can invite you to ask. And feel free, Pratima and also Shweta, if you have any questions.
I would like to look for some other opportunities or R&D part as well, if for the opportunities and all. Yeah.
So any of you know of any other fellowships or challenges that she could apply to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably that can be taken up offline. You can initiate the connect.
Okay, Sonali can connect you to Reena. So.
And also, I just wanted to, so I think she has a product which is already being accepted. So you should certainly consider applying for the tech incubations at various centers across India, which are supported by Atal Innovation Mission. So one of them is at NCL, because you are an organic chemistry student. So you can apply for the NCL Innovation Center. And if you get selected, you will get a startup grant to sort of scale your product further. So this is fantastic to hear, Pratima, your story and the way you have leveraged the supportive part from Red Dot Foundation's project.
Thank you.
And I do want to emphasize that this ESG fellowship is actually the Swedish alumni network, Mumbai, that has started it. Red Dot Foundation is the implementing partner, but I also want to thank all my, Swedish alumni colleagues who've given their time for master classes, for mentorship, for, supporting these young people in many different ways. And like you said, Darshana, it takes a village to help women in their careers, but I think even young people in their careers. Yeah. So my last question to each of you is, if you had to change one thing to build an ecosystem to accelerate gender equality in STEM, what would it be? Maybe
I can go first.
Yeah,
because I'm already doing that. So as I mentioned in my previous answer, I think we are living in very powerful times when all the information that we need is available at our fingertips. And it is also a time where we have the great digital divide, where many young women are coming online for the first time. So as I mentioned earlier, we are building ecosystem for scaling program Kalpana, where we could connect girls to role models and mentors they need for advancing in their careers. And the latest, the testing for scale part that we are conducting with the Telangana government's tribal and social welfare departments, we have a program that was mentoring about 1,800 girls this time. And out of that, you won't believe 1,200 plus girls made their email IDs for the first time to attend the program. And imagine, this is the power that we have in our hands. There are millions of such young women who are coming online for the first time in their life. And it is our opportunity to connect them to the networks, to the resources, to the people who will help them shape their visions, their dream and their aspirations. And our program Kalpana aspires to, create that digital platform, not just, be doing everything on our own, but also becoming an aggregator of sorts. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So be an aggregator where we can signpost and collaborate with other organizations. And all of us have to be humble in this approach that no one person can solve for the divide that our times are facing. And I think we all have a role to play, and we all have a role to pay it forward and share, collaborate as openly as possible. So at this end, Vigyanshala, whatever mentoring curriculum, resources, technical parts we are developing, everything is open source. Any other organization across the globe can lift the whole ops model and implement a similar program wherever they want. And that's what we are. Thank you. That I'll stop. Thank you, Elsa.
Yeah, I think there are millions of, not just girls, but young people out there who are worried about their futures, about their careers, and technology is changing at a very rapid pace. So if they can get comfortable with technology, if they can start building that level of skill, I think, we'll put them on a path where they can thrive in the future. So thanks for sharing that. Reena, what about you? What is
I think scalability is the key. There are a lot of programs which different entities run. All of them have impact. Like, if you talk to anybody who's running an NGO, doing anything for women, just by the fact, and of course, you guys are doing really remarkable things, but there's so many places where it is where, other things are happening, maybe just skilling or it's mentoring at a smaller scale. I think that what is lacking is scale. So my wish actually is if we could, create a solution which is scalable, and that requires not me working alone or you working alone, but it requires partnership. If you can create a solution which is scalable, and even if it requires the, and as Darshana rightly pointed out, and as I was saying earlier, is that for anything to scale to country level, the government has to be involved, maybe both at the center level as well as the state level. So can we devise something for women in STEM in collaboration, which is a more scalable solution? That would be the dream. And, and do a proof of concept of that, and do it successfully before any other part of the world has actually done it. And I think it's possible. So my wish is that we get together again to discuss and brainstorm this and take it forward.
Absolutely. Elsa, if you don't mind, I just wanted to...
You created the open source curriculum. We have, Maneesh, who's been vice chancellor of a university. So we have all the necessary skills out here. Yes, Darshana.
No, I just wanted to say, like you said, you mentioned earlier, you are at the W7 meeting right now. And I think platforms like these are present excellent opportunity for collaboration and partnership, because there is so much we can learn from various other countries and efforts, like just in the women in STEM space, by being part of this whole network of other organizations that are doing similar efforts in their countries. I think there's so much that we can, learn, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? And creating an opportunity for cross-fertilization of ideas, like the ESG challenge, right? You ran it for India. Suppose there's a global challenge where a girl sitting in North America is partnering with a girl sitting in India and Philippines, and they are building innovation, bringing the voice of their communities to the forefront of science and innovation. Imagine what would come out of those, So I think, and you are at the perfect place to sort of be a catalyst. And I think that's why I'm just saying out my admiration out loud. Like, I really admire the way you've been able to, churn the system and create opportunities for people from different walks of life to contribute into dialogues such as the one happening today. So thank you for what you do, Elsa.
Thank you. And do you know that right now at W7, they are having a panel on just this topic? I missed that for this, but anyway, this was very interesting. Maneesh, last words.
Yes, I would say, especially for Reena and Darshana, who are having this mentor network, why don't you identify also men who could be mentors? So in the process, what happens? Men also get trained, because mentors also have to be trained, right?
Sorry, Manish, for interrupting. Our mentors are both men and women. So just that the mentee we are targeting are girls, but yeah.
because
And my
that's one.
personal aspirations have been shaped by, I think, greatly by one particular mentor who's no more, but he had the most profound impact on my life and my journey, I would say. So it's mentoring.
And then just a point of clarification, because we are an ecosystem player, what means we try to encourage other entities in the ecosystem to take up larger programs, because we have to look at so many things from a quantum perspective. So we don't run a mentoring session, dedicated mentoring session right now, but we support organizations, we make policy recommendations and so on. So we will do a proof of concept. That's why I talked about a proof of concept. I'll be very happy to collaborate on a proof of concept, because then that can be taken as a scalability recommendation to the government for doing something in this space.
And that's precisely what we have also done. Build a proof of concept, government, piloting it with them for scale. And then once it's sort of proof of scale is established, we say, okay, now the governments can run it. We give all the things that we have built open source to them. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, let
Awesome.
Maneesh finish his point.
Sorry for interrupting.
So, because it is during that process, I feel many of the men who would not even look at this aspect would get trained into becoming, see, when the realization comes in, they will be better ambassadors to bring up, this gender equality and the sensitivity among many more people. That's my last words. Thank you.
Thanks, Maneesh. And that is absolutely what we also do. We engage a lot of men, because you don't only find a lot of women as mentors. So by default, we have to include men. And it's a good thing because, like you said, learning by doing, not just for the mentees, but also for the mentors. Mentoring anyway is a two-way process. It's never a one-way process. But yeah, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your valuable thoughts. Thank you, Pratima and Shweta, for giving us feedback on your experience, and Sonali for sharing what you do. I will echo Reena to say that we will regroup and figure out how to scale up, if at all. But thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you, Elsa, for facilitating this. And thank you, Reena and Maneesh. It was lovely hearing your views on, and look forward to collaborating.
Same here. Thank you so much, everyone.